This is the grand finale of the Diff Startup Day that's been running all day. We've had 12 startups pitching over the course of the day. We've narrowed it down to 3, and today we're going to decide a winner live on air at the Diff, and that company will get a membership to the C100. To get us going, could you give us a 60-second pitch of what Stuffstr is all about, John?
Sure, absolutely. So StuffSure has a vision of no unused stuff. So we want to see everything that's made be used fully and then reprocessed and used again. And we do that by partnering with retailers to provide instant buyback of every item. So as a consumer, you can buy something with the knowledge that you'll always be able to get the residual value of that item. And to capture that, all you have to do is go into your retailer account. You'll see your last 5 years of purchases. Every item will have a stamp on it of an instant purchase price, instant buyback price. And I just select the items I want to sell back. I say go, and the courier comes to my door for free, picks the item up. As soon as the courier picks the item up, I get transmitted that payment in the form of store credit. So within an hour, everything is picked up, hauled away, I'm paid, I'm completely done. And we just finished a pilot with the UK retailer John Lewis. That was one of the most successful pilots they've done in recent memory. We had 100% customer satisfaction. We had just tremendous results from that. And so we're now looking to scale this really rapidly and get it out there.
So it's a digital inventory of all of your stuff and a seamless process to liquidate that and sell it, and the infrastructure behind all of that to get the money in your pocket and the stuff out of your door as quickly as possible.
That's right, and the focus has always been on making it so simple for people to capture this value and recirculate their things that they'll do that before they leave something sitting around piling up in a closet or an attic or cluttering up their homes.
And everyone can relate to
I think
wanting to
just
shift
about everyone
clutter.
can relate to that.
Okay, so
yes.
you've got a big target market out there.
Yes.
Jeff, Creolus, slightly different because you're a fund, but give us the 60-second pitch for Creolus.
Sure. Okay, so firstly, thanks very much for inviting me. Creolus, we are intended to be one of the early stage investors in science to help change the planet and bring to the fore circular economy. So we're a unique mix of scientists, entrepreneurs, and investment professionals. So putting that together, what we, in short, are able to do, we understand the science, we understand how to protect that science, and then we also have people with operational experience, real operational experience, on how to build a business. So we know how to build a business around that science. So that's what we do. We're mid-fundraise, so anybody interested in assisting, well, that's wonderful. But what makes us different is that we go in very, very early. We'll look at innovations that are still in the test tube, as opposed to proof of concept, because we've got people who really understand the technology roadmap, the financial roadmap, because we've seen it right from the word go.
When you're saying science projects, can you just give us an example of the type of technology or process that you're investing in?
Okay, so we really are looking for things that potentially can transform this planet. Just looking, and we're totally focused on plastics and finding new materials to either replace, repurpose, and or redesign plastics, or based from fossil fuels. So an example would be a new technology for a new material that can hold, let's say, water, or can hold condiments. That kind of thing would be very, very interesting to us. I'm sure many people know about, there are some new technologies where organisms actually eat the plastics as a way to, could be used as a way to recycle. That's the kind of stuff we're very, very interested in. Things that don't necessarily have to have been proven, but something that we could really get our teeth into to understand, something that really could transform. Because the plastics market, if you look at it purely from a numbers perspective, we estimate is worth about $470 billion a year. So if we can find some innovations that actually can help transform that and be commercially viable, then you're looking at a pretty good return, as well as saving the planet. That's the bit that we're really excited about.
And that's basically what we're talking about here, right? Is that there are unique sources of value that no one else has figured out yet. And why you are both doing what you're doing is because you think you've found a unique source of value that maybe sits between the cracks of the way to traditional business, traditional investors, traditional startup, incubators, etc. No one's looking and no one's spotting this. So, John, you got on to mention the systemic nature of the challenge and therefore the solution for that challenge that could capture that value. Can you unpick that a little bit, maybe with Stuffstr as the example?
Well, sure, of course. Why not, right? Yeah, well, I mean, the context for us is that 98% of the things, so you're talking about capturing value. So 98% of the things people buy capture no residual value at all, right? Only 2% of things ever go through a resale marketplace and actually bring value back to the original owner. So it's a complete void. And we knew that if we could find some way to actually capture that value and bring it to the surface, then there's tremendous opportunity and that everybody can win from
And
that.
what we're saying there is literally, you've got a garage full of stuff, you spend $100 on a surfboard or something, you have it for 5 years and then you kind of landfill it or you
well, yeah, typically
give it away.
you'd use it for 5 years and then it would sit there for another 20 years and then you would move homes and you would throw it away. Right?
But there is
would
an
have no
inherent
value
value in that surfboard.
Absolutely.
And that's where that's the value that you're capturing.
Absolutely. But for us to actually capture that value and bring it to the surface, we can't do that on our own. We had to come up with a way that presented a consumer proposition that made it as easy to recirculate those things as to leave them sitting in your garage for 25 years. And to do that, we had to have partnerships. We had to find ways to work with others to bring that to light, which I think is true of most of the circular economy. I mean, the circular economy is not we're going to build a widget and sell the widget kind of ecosystem, right? It's an interconnected system. And to make things work, you've got to have relationships with all the other players that make that go. For us, the primary relationship is with retail, because retail is that critical connection between product and consumer, right? They're the only ones that know where that connection gets made.
That's where you, over the till, you buy your surfboard and that retailer knows that you, John, have bought a surfboard.
That's right. And from StuffSure standpoint, we knew that the only way for us to actually be successful in what we were trying to accomplish was to capture the information and that connection before a product walked out the door. I mean, as soon as someone buys something and walks out a door, if there's not any kind of record of that can be repurposed, it's lost forever, right? I mean, there's no consumer connection between a buying decision and a disposal decision, right? You usually don't remember where you bought it, when you bought it, any of that by the time it's sitting in your garage for 20 years. So we had to make that connection, and to make that connection, we had to engage retailers. We had to make them partners. And when we first started StuffSure, people thought we were crazy, right? Why would a retailer ever want to work with you on reselling products? Because it's going to cannibalize new sales, it's going to degrade the brand, it's going to have all these horrible effects. But we didn't really believe that. We believed that there were actually ways to make this beneficial for all, which comes back to this uncaptured value. And if you're actually bringing to the surface the value of 98% of the things people buy, there's a lot of money to go around.
What we are looking to work and alongside with people like John and so on is creating an ecosystem. We are all parts of an ecosystem. In order to create a circular economy, no one person has everything. We need innovations. We need people who are going to grow that innovation. Then we have also need for people to buy that innovation, and ultimately getting it back to whether it's to keep it in use and so on. But what we, as a company or as a fund, in effect, will be doing is what runs through all of this is a financial part to this. It's great having a great idea, but you need people who understand that idea to see whether actually should it come to light or not. And then once it's starting to come to life, you still need money to enable it to get to the next stage, commercial stage, then to be something that a large company might want to purchase. Because one has to also understand that big companies, whilst they have innovation arms, they still have shareholders and obligations to ensure that they are making the right decisions. And so what we do is we're focused on that very, very early stage, take the high risk. And so you need to gear yourself up to be able to manage that risk. And the way that we do that is by having people who really understand it. Because with no disrespect, not every single scientist is a great business person. And so what we are here to do is to help bridge that gap, understanding what the concepts are, being able to translate those to understand, actually, is there something that one can build out of that? And then assisting, whether it is assisting in terms of building a team or putting them, connecting them to the right people within our ecosystem, to then say, okay, you've got a great test tube idea. This is probably what you need to do to get to the next level. We'll help you do that, and we know that's going to require money because you're going to have to find people or time and or lab space, etc., and or trials. That all costs money, and that's why we're here. We're here to take that, assist with that risk, and get things into the light.
And what about you, John? But raising money with this concept that is.
Oh, it's so easy. So easy.
I get the sense that you're not being strictly honest with us there.
Well, no. And I think actually, to all of those who competed today, I think it's just kind of inherent in circular economy that because it is an ecosystem, because it is not building just a widget and you put it out there, that it's a more complex pitch to investors than a lot of other businesses typically. And you're looking at things really from a different perspective, right? And I think, in general, you can say circular economy is a completely different view of the world. It's, it's analyzing things from a very different viewpoint. And so communicating that to the investment community has been challenging. I think the other part of it is that it does, as I was describing, it requires partnerships, it requires relationships, and that's inherently a little more risky for investors because it's not all under your control. You have to be able to convince others to be a player.
And so, Jeff, we've got people at home who maybe have an idea, maybe there's some point already in trying to ask for some money for it. I don't know if you've got any kind of tips or hints for people who are in that situation, maybe just starting out, to think how do you approach an investor?
Yeah. Okay. Just at a very high level, there's sort of three general things that an investor will look at. And you have to sometimes think about it, if it was your money, what would you want to see? And of course the idea is wonderful. We'll take that as read. But the things that we would be looking at is, one, people, two, the purpose, and three, the planning. And I'll explain what each one of those is. The people, I'm sure you've heard about this before. An investor wants to know who is behind this wonderful idea. Do they have, what capabilities do they have? What gaps are there? And be honest about the gaps. Don't be afraid to say, well, actually, I don't understand numbers. I'm not a great business person, but I am a brilliant scientist and we have got a great idea. That's fine. And then the second part of that is about the purpose and what's the issue it's trying to solve, and does it align with what I know? So you have to cater for the investor's intent. We get an awful lot of inbound random requests for us to invest, but we invest and will invest rather in the plastic space. But I get questions about mental health. I get questions about putting money into new cement blocks for real estate investments, which have nothing to do with our investment focus.
It's like a scattergun approach.
Absolutely. So again, be selective in who you are going to be approaching. They are human beings, they've got a certain amount of time, and they look decidedly more positively on somebody who's really chosen them. We're human beings. So if you say, actually, I've been following what you've been up to, I'm really interested in who you are and how you come across and so on, I'd very much like to have a conversation with you. So that's and the purpose links to that. So why are you doing it? Does it fit with us? And the third one is about planning. So yes, you've got a great idea. Yes, you've got a team and you've worked out what your gaps are. Yes, you've worked out what issue you're trying to solve. The next piece is how you might do that. So put some thought into, this is the gap that we see, and this is possibly how we might plug that gap. Maybe if you're not great at numbers, but you say, well, this is how we estimate, because we've done, at least do some research on what the market might be. So then it makes it easier for somebody at a cursory glance to be able to say, wow, that size market, that hole being plugged, yep, I can relate to it because it's something I do understand. Oh, let's have another conversation. And it shows that you are thinking, and that's the key bit. We have lots of what we call inbound, and the people that stand out are those that take the time to think.
And make it easy for you, right?
Well, I think make it easy only from the perspective that we have to separate the wheat from the chaff in terms of if you've made an effort, then it shows that you're probably going to make an effort even when you have someone else's money on board. Right. That's the piece. It's not about making it easy for us because none of this is easy. Setting up businesses is not easy. It's a hit and miss often, but it is, you need hard work and you need to be able to show and demonstrate to somebody who's going to give away some money. It may not necessarily all be our own, but if somebody was asking you for some money, you'd want to know, have you done it before? What are you going to be doing with it? When am I going to get it back? What are the chances of me actually getting something a little bit more back? You will ask those questions if it was your money. And so that's the kind of thing you have to think about.
Okay, so let's get into the startups. We've selected 3. Thanks to everyone who has applied. It was competitive. We've already had a bit of kind of arm wrestling in the corridor around these. The 3 that we've selected are Cafe Bueno, Nairobi, and 3Kila. And what we're going to do now is hear from those applications. We're going to see their application video, and we're just going to talk through and maybe hopefully give some feedback to the guys that have applied, but ultimately pick our winner. So if we could hear from Cafe Bueno.
Cafe Bueno is a circular economy startup using biotechnology and coffee's byproduct as a platform to produce natural ingredients for cosmetics, nutraceuticals, and functional foods.
We recycle coffee from different hotels, cafes, and offices around Copenhagen, and then we extract an antioxidant-rich oil that is used as an ingredient for natural cosmetics.
We sterilize them and process them to make sure they are in the utmost quality to be reused again in the food industry as a nutritious coffee flour.
This coffee flour is naturally gluten-free.
It has more proteins than lentils and more potassium than a banana.
And it's rich in insoluble dietary fibers, which provides a prebiotic effect.
We are continuously researching and developing more ingredients from recycled coffee grounds that can address skin and health conditions.
From every ton of coffee waste we recycle, we avert the release of 340 cubic meters of methane.
Our goal for the next year is to recycle 5 tons of coffee waste monthly, and we aim to recycle 60 tons by the end of the year.
Since we come from Colombia, we know how hard it is for coffee farmers to make a decent living.
This is why we have come up with plans to relocate part of our profits back into the farms.
If you want to know more, please join our Disruptive Innovation Festival session on the 21st of November and find out more about what we're doing.
Cheers.
Okay, that's the boys from Cafe Bueno. Okay, let's move on. Next up we have Nairobi.
Nairobi is changing the sports equipment industry by introducing circular economy in the design, manufacturing, and complete life cycle of your boards. Rethinking from scratch the way snowboards and skis are made, Nairobi developed a new manufacturing process and a new composite material to create personalized boards that looks and feels the way you want, and on top of that they are completely recyclable, so we can stop contributing to the huge wastelands of obsolete and broken equipment. We think this is amazing, an online tool to customize the boards, delivered on site with no extra luggage costs, and then return to Nairobi to get sustainable credit for the next season upgraded board. Your equipment on the cloud, zero waste on the planet. Now, think what this means for rental stores that accounts for around 70% of the snow equipment we use every year. The savings on stock renovation costs, the branded equipment, the trendy shapes and image, and the commitment with the environment. And now think bigger. We are working to use the same technology on surf, kite and wakeboards. You design and ride your snowboard until you decide to return it when the winter is over. And then you download the surfboard to catch the waves. Join us and help us recreate sports equipment.
Nairobi. That's maybe where the surfboard came into the back, lodged in the back of my mind earlier. Exactly. The third application that we put through to the final, we haven't got a video for, but it was 3Cular. And 3Cular was essentially a new material feedstock for 3D printers. So they were taking the waste, the sawdust from sawmills, doing something with it, feeding it into a 3D printer and producing kind of wooden 3D printed parts and components. You know, there's interest in all three of them. They're all great ideas, businesses, questions with all three of them as well. We couldn't get all of the information we needed.
Yeah. I mean, which makes it tough, right?
Makes it tough. You're in a hard spot here.
Yeah. Yes.
But we have to make a decision, and we're going to put it down to a vote. So maybe, John, who would you put through to the C100?
Oh boy, you have to go with me first. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, once again, on the basis of very limited information, I'd really like to answer these. I mean, I'd probably go with 3Cular just because I'm so enthusiastic about 3D printing, and I think that it's got real problems that this could actually abate.
The fact that actually if you go to any kind of makerspace, and there's actually just a lot of plastic kind of stuff that's coming out of these 3D printers.
Yes.
Who would you go for, Joe?
I like the 3Cular. I think that there's something there, but for me, I think on what we've seen, I think Nairobi has won it for me in terms of it's got a business model that it understands, it's got some material which has an application and potentially other applications. And yeah, I love snowboards anyway, so that's another thing.
That's a way to your heart.
But that's one thing. Yeah.
Okay, that looks like I've got the deciding
so
vote.
the power is in
How
your
convenient. I'm going to go with you, Jeff. I agree. I think all three, there were some great and different, actually, innovations with the three companies that applied. I think the information that we got through Nairobi in the business model, the fact that they were making that material selection, simplifying one material, getting the same performance, and they thought about the business model. I thought there was two really important components, and it seems like they're actually potentially in a position to kind of scale up. Right, they've kind of thought through. So Nairobi, you are joining the C100 next year, so we'll be in touch with that. Congratulations.